Good morning and welcome to Capital Academy. Capital Academy is all about bringing information to early stage and startup companies as they're walking through their process of raising capital, but it's also designed for investors, especially those looking to just get into investing and starting to understand various things that can happen within that world. Today, our segment is going to speak about real estate investing and considering going into crowdfunding of real estate investing. And in that respect, we have Christopher King with us, who is a real estate investor, and we have Joanne Jackson with us, who is interested in possibly getting involved with some real estate investing. So to start the segment, King, why don't you give us a little bit of information on who you are and what you're doing?
Okay. Well, I am the co-founder and president of an organization called Conscious Capitalism DC chapter. And Conscious Capitalism is based upon the principle that business can solve all the world's problems. And so we do business according to 4 principles, being number 1, having a higher purpose in your business instead of just making money. We call it people over profit. Number 2, we say stakeholder orientation, which we believe that all our stakeholders must benefit from our business, and we describe in our bylaws and our mission exactly who our stakeholders are and how they benefit. Principle number 3 is conscious leadership, where conscious leaders create a business to solve a world problem. And then number 4 is conscious culture, in which we believe in diversity hiring, paying our employees a living wage. So as a business consultant, I've taken those principles to real estate investing. And we like to say investing with a higher purpose. And so right now we're currently in the market of developing a model called Conscious Community in Baltimore City, in which we intend to do real estate development, neighborhood revitalization, creating sustainable home ownership, job creation, business development, and helping folks become more financially educated as far as how to begin to build wealth through real estate and through business.
That's a lot. I am looking forward to digging into more of what's going on there. Joanne, please give us a little bit of your background.
Hi, Lorette. Thanks for having me on the show today. I'm the minority business coordinator working in Arundel County. And so I've had access to lots of different businesses, looking at what some of their challenges are, where they want to go in the future, how do they grow, how do they develop wealth and real estate.
Very cool. And so Christopher really gave us a lot of information on what's going on. And so I guess I'd first like to understand, when I hear you say looking to do various developments in Baltimore, give us a sense of what that might look like.
Okay, one of the things I like to let folks know is that I'm not an investor, I'm more of a developer. And the difference I see in being that an investor usually is going to focus on one particular property, where a developer looks at a broader vision. I want to purchase, or we want to look at what we can do to improve the neighborhood, build strategic relationships with local community stakeholders, work with the local council and city to be more of a vibrant part of the community, and make sure the community understands what we're doing. So currently, right now, we're working in the Druid Heights Community Development Area, Upton, as well as, I would say, Marble Hill. And we just acquired Thurgood Marshall's childhood home, so we're going to do some development around that particular area. And just kind of give you an idea of what we have in mind, our approach to what we call conscious development. We actually have a town hall, and we talk to the community first to find out what the community needs are. And then we begin to do our development based on those. If they're looking for more green space, if they need a community center, then we want to make sure we incorporate that into our development plans, as opposed to developing first and then convincing others to buy our product. So we're definitely more of a being integrated and being a part of the community that we're going to be developing in.
Where I think that's significant is that truly opens the door for community stakeholders to also be able to invest and participate in what's being built and developed.
Absolutely.
As opposed to everything coming from the outside.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, because there is no real planning and let's break it down to the minority community. We have these plans, you have your planning department, but the reality is they don't take it down to the micro level and see how does these plans affect our community. So I think you're right on point. I'm a planner by profession also, and I've watched that through my whole career, and it kind of like never ends. So if people like yourself don't step up and do that for the community, then we're always going to have the same issues. So I'm glad to have met you today.
Well, thank you. Same here. And to your point, that's where this concept really came about. If we talk about approaching it with a higher purpose, you realize that in order to really make a difference, and that's where, as a conscious capitalist, to solve a problem, we saw an issue 45 miles up from D.C., and we said that we have to be active in that particular community. And Baltimore has a lot of issues, but has a lot of greatness, particularly around African Americans, the history, the culture.
Yes.
And we want to tap into that energy and that past and let that guide us in our directions of how we begin to invest and the connections that we make with the community ourselves. Our goal is to help individuals who want to invest. We can now collectively invest together, because we do a lot of neighborhood research analysis to make sure that you don't go out there and invest by yourself, and you're investing as part of a team. And through that team effort, we use an we tap into the age-old axiom that if it takes a village to raise a child, well, it takes a village to raise a village. And so that's our approach to real estate investing in that context.
Have you been looking at many of the mechanisms that give you the ability to have non-accredited investors investing in these projects?
You know, we just started getting some of those. I would say that definitely I need to increase my competence in that area, and I'm looking forward to that. We looked at some of the crowdfunding techniques that investors can do. Like one of the buildings that I recently purchased, we're actually going to turn it into a cafe. And I understand that Maryland has a law that allows investors to invest $1,000, I believe, to raise funds for that. And so that's some things we're going to look into, those kind of options.
Yeah, I think what you have available to you is not only, so you have the Maryland, the local crowdfunding regulation that allow you, and actually they allow you to do a maximum of $100,000. And then, you know, look at how it breaks down by individuals. There is then the federal crowdfunding regulation, which allows you to do a maximum of $1 million. Though I know both of those numbers are pretty small for real estate development, but those are pieces that could be added on, that's how you start bringing the community stakeholders in. But you still have the ability to even do the private placements that then allow you to do the bigger dollars. It just depends on which one you use for who you're actually inviting to invest. But you mentioned to me one day, we were speaking about H Street and Fundrise, who also did a project in DC that was really the face of crowdfunding real estate investing in this area. So I think you guys have a great project to take off from, and you have some platforms that you can mirror to get the things going where you are.
And we also need guidance from individuals like yourself.
I look forward to guiding.
To make sure that we actually are doing things to be very compliant.
Right.
But by the same token, and you know, I think one of the, as they say, 800-pound gorillas in the room is the fact that we as a African American community have to begin to invest together. So our approach is making sure that legally we have everything, structurally we have everything intact, so that we can make sure that we can get beyond the issues of trust. And really get down to saying, let's begin to work together. So working with individuals like yourself is extremely important in our vision going forward.
Location
I look forward to being involved.
Location is always important because you've got different incentives throughout the city of Baltimore, but for different neighborhoods. So that's also a consideration. I just looked at the commitment letter that Sagamore Development prepared for the community, for those South Baltimore communities, which is very strategic and very aligned with some of the objectives that you're doing. But your communities are further north inside the city?
Well, I wouldn't say. Basically, our approach is that we start off particularly in the, again, Druid Heights community, which is more like
Midtown? Is that in Midtown?
West Side. It's on the west side. And the reason we chose that location primarily was because of the historical significance of it. The fact that Thurgood Marshall and Clarence Mitchell and all those individuals came from that community. And then our choice in choosing a community had to be having a large church as an institutional foundation. And so we've partnered with my church now, I've joined. It's called Union Baptist Church, which is the second oldest Baptist church in Baltimore City. And so that was important for us in the context that we wanted to make sure that we become a part of the community and not just be viewed as outside investors investing in that community. And just if I could take a moment to say this, that I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. And so I know fully aware of the protests and the issues that were surrounding police brutality. And then moving to Baltimore City, and they have the same issues there.
Right.
And our approach to it is really economic. The way you deal with these issues is to bring an economic infrastructure there. Job creation can be developed through real estate development.
Right.
And then we can provide the financial literacy, and we can provide the education for entrepreneurs to begin to build their business. So we look at it as really a totally organic approach to creating economic stability in the African American community.
And the other thing you have to really be not careful of is the politics of those nonprofit organizations in those communities. You either got to make them your friend or make them your partner, because they could see that as a way of you moving in on some of the initiatives that they may have already begun. I also have a background in nonprofit management and development. So hopefully, you know, we can all work together on probably helping you move your project forward.
Absolutely.
One of the other things I really like about what you're saying, it is the educational part, right?
Yes.
Because the more people know, the more they understand, the better partners they become.
Yes.
But I think that educational piece also helps to bring those nonprofits more into the fold, as opposed to them feeling like they're outside. But in our communities, having the churches, having for-profit and having nonprofit working together, and not relying on the governmental structure, using government to support what you're doing, but not having to rely on them for bringing the dollars in,
Absolutely.
I think is what really opens the door to allow some of these type of projects to move forward.
Absolutely.
But you guys have already started working within the community. You want to talk about some of the things that you're currently doing in order to bring eyeballs into
Yes.
this?
As I mentioned before, one of the things we're currently doing is we're having monthly meetings with our community stakeholders to really get an understanding of what are some of the issues they're facing in the community. Because you can't come into the community and have a model to develop without really understanding some of the social issues, such as child literacy. We want to make sure that we bring in nonprofit experts that focus on that. Well, one of our organizations, or one of our members, is a gentleman called Kelvin, his organization called Arm in Arm, that focuses on helping returning citizens come back and get better acclimated with the community. We work with several different building organizations so they can provide job training, so we can use local Baltimore City residents as our labor force. Because there's 22 jobs that are created when you actually renovate or develop a home. And we want to make sure that everything we're doing is about creating, again, 4 key objectives, which is creating sustainable home ownership, which we provide pre and post home buying education to make sure that folks not only purchase a home, but they sustain it. So it's really tied to their current income level and having a clarity on making sure they budget properly. Number 2 is, again, job creation, making sure that we can provide training and hiring local city residents, not trying to bring labor force from outside within the city, which is important to us and important to the community stakeholders. Number 3 is, again, helping individuals understand if there's an entrepreneur spirit there, that we foster and help to grow that by providing business coaching, micro-lending for new small businesses that want to get started up, teaching them about how to raise capital, which is going to be an important piece. And then finally, once you have that understanding, let's talk about how you begin to transition that into beginning to build wealth.
So I have a question for you. Have you identified the properties yet?
Yes, we're
Okay.
actually, right now we're currently developing on the Broadway, which is on the east side.
Okay.
We currently have 5 properties we're developing there. So that's kind of our east side development focus right now. And then on the west side, we still, I don't want to reveal too much right now because we're in the process of doing some
Okay.
negotiations, some things. But we are actually, Division Street, McCullough, and Druid Hill are some of the blocks that we've decided we're going to start doing development work on,
Okay.
on the west side.
And you have contractors that you're familiar with and you're ready to move with you?
Yes. Again, my approach to doing, when I came and got involved with real estate development, I didn't like the fact that real estate, as you know, has a lot of uncertainty. And so as an engineer, which is my background, I'm looking to eliminate as much uncertainty as I can. And so my approach was to go out and find contractor partners. And so I don't approach them as vendors where I'm just paying you to do jobs. You're actually a part of what we're doing.
Right.
So they have vested interest in making sure we stay on time and we stay on the budget and those things. So 2 of my partners are actually developers that have been developing for over 20 years in the city.
Only
So I
reason I
think that
asked you
makes
is,
a
you know,
difference.
hundreds of contractors, so at any point in time, you need some referrals. I see you already have it together, but there's some great contractors in the city of Baltimore.
And let me just add, what I love with Joanne is she's been working with businesses for what, 20
30
years,
30
30
now.
years now. So knowing almost every business here in Maryland, and especially the minority-owned businesses, she is a wealth of resources in that respect.
So anytime we can help, just let me know.
Well, I look forward to that. I think you said something that was very profound earlier when you talked about the nonprofits and feeling that they are going to be territorial. You know, so having someone with your experience, your background, to help facilitate some of those discussions with those nonprofits is something we look forward to as well.
Our
Yeah,
partnership
it's-
brought
yes.
together already. That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
it's just the nature of their own funding, and they have to be politically connected, and they always have to be on top, and they always have to be aware. So when you have a new, just like if you meet somebody else, you have to, you know, figure out
Right.
who they are. So I think you've got a great beginning. You've got your initiative together, and I think it'll work. It'll work. It'll work.
What, how are things moving currently with the community stakeholders? So we talked about some of the movers and shakers that are part of the project. How are things moving currently with residents in the community? Have you gotten to that level yet to have those sort of discussions? Where does that lie?
Yes, we've actually began to have discussions with a lot of community stakeholders. Another good thing about Baltimore City, as you know, Baltimore City is a city of neighborhoods. It's actually 277 different neighborhoods in Baltimore City. And each neighborhood, if it's a thriving neighborhood that you want to develop in, has a community neighborhood leader or association. And so it's important as we talk into these communities to start talking to these community neighborhood associations and find out what their concerns were. Number one, when you talk about doing any kind of development is you got to make sure that you're hiring from local talent in the community. That was number one, that was important. Number two, they want to make sure that you're building homeowners and not just renters. That was something that was important to them.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure our focus is home ownership, not renting.
Yes.
Number three, they wanted to make sure that we are mindful of green space, that we have enough space so that there's parks, there's areas for community gardens. That's something that was important to them as well. And so that has been a very informative exchange information that we've gotten from working with them. Because once we have that relationship and they realize our interests and their interests are aligned, then we can begin to really start to do some great things. And that's really been happening now in the context that they're going to be supportive of the efforts that we're doing because we are supporting what their issues and what their challenges were in the community.
Yeah.
Again, one of the things we've done on Broadway is that crime has been an issue in certain areas, in certain neighborhoods. And so different residents have created new residents have created a new community crime association where they meet on a weekly basis. They adopt a look out for your neighbor model. So if something happens to one neighbor, everyone has their eyes out there. So they exchange information. They look to pick up trash. It's really becoming a truly organic, and it's shaping into a truly organic community. And it's a wonderful thing to see that happening, and folks taking ownership of saying, I'm a part of this community, I'm going to protect it in every way I can, economically, when it comes to cleaning, sanitation, things of that nature.
I just want to make sure your organization is a for-profit.
Yes,
Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And so what I love about that, I used to work with an organization called Sustainable. And at the time I was in New York on Long Island, so Sustainable Long Island. And it's interesting, so much that I hear that you're doing is built off of sort of that nonprofit theory, but doing it in a for-profit fashion. And again, my feeling is that's where you do get probably more people involved that will stay involved for a longer period of time because their what they have in it makes a little more of a difference because they have a financial reason to try to make that happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then the city has their vacants to value programs. They've got all kinds of initiatives that you could piggyback on, and I'm sure you probably already know about that, but not so much. I'm not really familiar with the commercial side of it, but that's more focused on the residential side. So.
You're absolutely right, and that's one of the programs we're working with, which we go through their vacancy value program to put an offer out to the city to purchase a neighborhood, and it's all based upon what your mission, your vision
Right.
you have for it. The city's working with you, so that's definitely their Exit Value program is a huge partner in what we're doing going forward.
Okay. So as we get ready to round this segment down, Joanne, is there any other particular questions you may have for King or myself, or just what we've been talking about?
Well, no, I think that's your ideas and your whole concept is very comprehensive, and we need more comprehensive planners and thinkers like yourself going into the neighborhoods that don't have the $1 million condos and the $1 million homes, and really focus on helping low to moderate income families gain that edge. And I think that, like you said, Lorette, no one is feeding them information. No one is feeding them the educational piece, and so I think that's that you'll do well.
Thank you.
You'll do well.
And how about yourself, King? Any last words or questions for either myself or Joanne, or just the subject matter we're talking about?
Well, I will say this, that since I'm a new to Baltimore City, I just moved up there as a new resident, and since we've been talking about, and I was doing our work in Baltimore City prior to that, is that Baltimore City has been very welcoming. They've welcomed us with open arms. Everyone I've talked to is very excited about being a part of it, because it's not a selfish endeavor.
Right.
People can see themselves in this vision as well. Like,
Yeah.
folks have referred to it as my vision. It's not my vision. It's our
Right.
vision. It's a
Right.
community structured vision. And even this show and working with you ladies is another part of that, because without everyone's input, we're not going to make it.
Yeah.
And it's important to make sure that everyone sees their role in it, and everyone brings a level of love and that kind of energy around it. We're going to do great things together.
That's
Right.
great. Then let me just add, I am so looking forward to working with you guys. I thank you so much for tapping in. But because I spend so much time in the private equity space, companies raising capital, and what capital is all about, I have seen a lot of different organizations that are utilizing the provisions of the Jobs Act to do a lot of community development. And every and anything I can possibly do to add to the mission of what you guys are doing, but add to helping stakeholders understand the possibilities, I absolutely look forward to that. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for
Kim.
having me.
Thank you, Joanne.
Peace and love.
And this being another segment of Capital Academy, I hope that anyone watching has gotten some information. If there's information that you heard that makes sense for you, we look forward to you tapping in. Just follow the information that's coming after this. And if you like what you hear and you think somebody else would be interested, we look forward to you sharing it. So thank you again for joining us on Capital Academy.